Welcome to the Fermented Homestead. If you're new here, my name is Anna, and on this channel, I like to share our journey of learning how to turn our home into a homestead. Today, I'm sick. I've been sick for a couple of days now, and I thought that it would be a fun idea to kind of bring you along and share with you the things that I do in my own life with my own body that help me to feel better when I'm not feeling so great. It's been several years since I've actually had any kind of an actual sickness that brought me down, other than feeling kind of ugh for a day or two. And other than that, it's been a really long time. And that is definitely very different from what I used to feel like and the way that my body used to be. Just kind of a little bit of a backstory here. I used to weigh probably about 300 pounds and I was horribly unhealthy. Brought a picture to prove it. That's me, probably about, 7 or 8 years ago. And that's not even anywhere close to my peak weight. Anyways, I used to be probably about 300 pounds. I was horribly unhealthy. I used to eat terribly, and I had absolutely no knowledge of nutrition whatsoever. So after a while, I started to kind of gain awareness of health and things like that. And the thing that really kicked me off for actually learning how to take care of my health was one time when I got sick. I used to get sick very, very often. I would get sick. If there was an illness going around, I caught it, period, end of story. Like if you were around me back then and you sneezed, it was like, yo, get away from me, like back up. But I would still catch it anyways. Probably about every month to every other month, I would get a very, very terrible sickness, and it was just horrible, and it would last for weeks on end, and it was miserable. Back then, I used to have a very active asthma, and I smoked, which I know is terrible, but I don't anymore, don't worry. But I did, and so it just made everything so much worse when I was sick. It just amplified everything. And so one day I was looking around on the internet and I came across this article, and it said that all of the symptoms that you get when you're sick are just symptoms of your immune system. They're not symptoms of whatever bug you might happen to have. They're actually like your fever, your cough, your stuffy runny nose, if you're vomiting or anything like that, that's your body's way of getting it out of your system. That's your body's way of fighting. If you have a fever, that totally amplifies the abilities of your immune system within reason, of course. I mean, you don't want to go too crazy, but if you have a little bit of a fever, it's just your body's way of fighting back. If you're coughing things up, that's your body's way of getting rid of it, and so on and so forth. I had always been of the mind of taking medicines, over-the-counter cough medicines, cough drops, whatever newfangled thing I could come up with to help me feel better, I would try it. And so when I came across this article, I decided the next time that I was gonna get sick, I would put it to the test and I would try it. So I did. And that time of being sick was the best time ever of being sick. I was sick for about 3 days and then I was perfectly fine after that. It was easy sickness. It was very mild. I could function and do what I needed to do on a daily basis. And all I did was nothing. I didn't take any medicine. I sat on the couch. I rested. I relaxed. I actually slept, and that was kind of my first introduction into natural healing. Like, hey, my body is healthy enough and it is strong enough, even in this weak state, to fight off this virus. So doing nothing was definitely the first thing that I do when I get sick. I take it easy, I chill, I relax, I sleep, I don't take any medicine whatsoever, and I haven't for probably 7 or 8 years, I would say. And in that time, my immune system hadn't actually developed enough, and so I would continue to get sick, but I didn't take anything and I recuperated very quickly. In case I forgot to mention it earlier, and I'm pretty sure that I didn't, I wanted to make sure that I insert here, I am not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not anybody but somebody who used to be very overweight, unhealthy, and just generally crappy feeling person. And I did my research and I did my own N of 1 and figured out what helps me and what makes me feel better. And that is constantly evolving. I'm always finding new information. I'm always experimenting on myself in a Frankensteinish kind of way, but I'm always experimenting on myself, seeing what makes me feel better, seeing what makes me feel worse. And so that's just kind of evolved over time to this list of things that makes me feel better. So do your own research and all of this stuff and consult with your doctor and all of that kind of, stuff. So after that introduction into, hey, my body can actually handle this, I decided to kind of take it a step further. And I kind of decided that it was smart for me personally to encourage my symptoms. I would, if I had a fever, I would bundle up and stay as warm as I could stand. And I would, you know, like I kind of am now. I don't really have a fever anymore, but I still like to stay nice and warm. And then, you know, just the old sweating it out, basically. I had come across this one article, I think it was, I don't remember exactly what it was, but actually I think it might have been a video, regardless. But I was somebody going around and interviewing a bunch of kind of old timer people and finding out what they do when they get sick. And the number one thing that they all pretty much all said was that they get in bed, bundle up, get really warm, and go to sleep, and they're fine the next day. So that was kind of another thing that kind of furthered my interest in nurturing my symptoms, I guess. And, you know, if I need to cough, I cough. If I have a runny nose, I blow it. If I have a fever, then I bundle up. And kind of in general, it's pretty hard for me normally to stay warm. I run very cold and I'm always bundled up, and just to stay kind of somewhat functional, especially during the winter, it's terrible. Like all my fingers will go just totally white, and the only thing that actually relieves it is running it under hot water for like several minutes, and then it kind of makes it come back, and a couple hours later I'm at it again. But when I'm sick, apparently I don't have much of an issue staying warm. So that was encouraging. So the third thing that I like to do, or that I did do in the past, but not so much anymore, is that I don't consume any sugar when I'm sick. Right now, I just don't consume any sugar, period, so I didn't have to cut any out. So I guess I'm still doing that. I just didn't have to change anything. And the reason that I came upon that particular conclusion, back when I used to be very, you know, large and in charge, I used to drink like Pepsi like it was water. I would go through probably at least a 6-pack a day, and I didn't drink any water. And then I came across this one, you know, I come across articles all the time. I came across this one article that had mentioned that 1 cup of soda kills your immune system for 24 hours. And so I was like, well, that's just stupid. And in my reasoning back then, what I did was I just switched over to Diet Coke, and that was a terrible decision. But it still improved my immune system. I cut out the sugar, the high amounts of sugar, and I stopped getting sick as often. And then just so many different researches and different diets and lifestyles and things that I've tried and looked into over the years. Really, the number one thing is cutting out the sugar. And so I just don't consume any sugar. I've come across numerous articles that have said that when basically the sugar kind of feeds any kind of bacteria, virus, or anything that's ailing you, the sugar is basically the fuel for it. And I know there can be some kind of argument for natural versus, you know, processed sugars and things like that. And I'm sure there is some truth to that. I just, in my own self, in my own life, I prefer to cut it out most of the time. Sometimes I kind of go a bit cyclical, and I can, you know, consume carbs and things like that at some times, but kind of my default is more keto carnivore type of things with like fermented foods added in. That's where I find that I feel the best, and that's where I pretty much always come back to. That's kind of my baseline, my normal, what I like to do, and that's how I eat. The next thing that I like to do, that when I'm feeling well or I'm feeling ill, it's kind of just a general thing for me that I like to practice, is something called intermittent fasting. And the idea kind of behind it, in my reasoning for using intermittent fasting, is that it gives your body a break. Digesting food in general takes an incredible amount of energy away from your body, and is basically just diverting it from other things that your body could be doing via giving your body just general energy, fighting off any kind of bacteria, or just kind of whatever. When you give your body a break from digesting, it gives it the ability to do all of the other processes that it needs to do beyond just digesting. So I like to practice intermittent fasting in general, and so that kind of carries into when I'm sick. Right now, I haven't been doing intermittent fasting for a tremendous amount of time, not long enough that I would have practiced it any other time intentionally when I was sick. But when I am sick, my consumption drops considerably, and I'm not hungry. And so I just kind of go and do what my body tells me to do when I'm sick, or really in general, but especially when I'm not feeling well. I just do what my body tells me to do. I figure my body knows more than I do, so I give it what it wants, and I don't give it what it doesn't need. And so intermittent fasting especially the way that I'm currently practicing it, is just usually one meal a day. Not intentional, it's just I'm not hungry and I just eat when I am hungry and I stop when I'm full, basically. And so that's what I do even more so when I'm sick. This meal is calorically dense, but since this is gonna be my only meal of the day, along with, you know, some chicken broth and things like that, it's not really too difficult to practice intermittent fasting. Number 5 on my list of things that I like to do in general, but especially when I'm feeling ill, is consume lots of animal products. And not lots of animal products, but predominantly what I consume is animal products or fermented foods. And I like to do that with make sure that I have sustainably sourced animals that were treated well and had a good life and, you know, were fed their natural diet. They were out on pasture, you know, just kind of where they belonged when they were alive. And so that's what I have here. The beef that I'm consuming is from the cow that we got not too long ago, and the liver is from the one that we had before. I'm still kind of working on that one because when I got the one that we got before, we actually got 2 gargantuan cow livers, and so I've just been kind of working through it over the last year. And I like to consume lots of animal products because it's really high in vitamins, it's really high in all kinds of minerals, and just everything that your body needs to rebuild itself. Because when you're sick, you know, it wreaks havoc on your body and you have to rebuild it at varying levels depending on the severity, and things like that, you know, come into play. Especially the liver, but the beef and the tallow and, you know, lard or any other animal products that are sustainably and ethically raised are going to be very high in all kinds of vitamins. I took some notes to make sure I could remember. It has, especially the liver, is very high in vitamin A, and which vitamin A helps to build the mucus barriers in your eyes, your lungs, your gut, and other unmentionable places. It helps in the production of white blood cells, which both catch and clear any kind of bacteria from your body, or from your bloodstream rather, and it repairs the tissues and helps rebuilding new tissues. So it's super important vitamin. You got to make sure you get lots of it, and you want to make sure that you get it in, or I make sure, I should say I mean, you can do what you want, but I like to make sure that I consume it in its natural state, in its natural form, and I don't like to supplement, and especially don't like to supplement with anything that is synthetic. I figure that nature knows what's best, and if it's grown in a lab, I don't want it. And another thing that is in animal products, some more than others, you know, eggs and things like that are going to have, eggs and salmon, things like that are going to be much higher in vitamin D. It's debatable if it's in any kind of like ruminant animals and things like that, but especially the Weston A. Price Foundation is a big advocate of it being in tallow and lard and things like that. So I really like following them and their practices kind of in general. And so I'm going to go with it and say that it's in there. In general, vitamin D it's a general aid in your digestion, in your immune system. And vitamin D is incredibly important for your immune system. Once upon a time, the first time that I really got my lab tests done on my blood work and things like that, I was so low in vitamin D that I think I didn't even have what it took to fight off rickets. Like, it was bad. And I don't consume any kind of supplements or anything like that. And for the most part, my diet consists of animal products and fermented foods. That's pretty much it. I don't consume any grains. I shouldn't say that. I very infrequently consume any kind of grains or, you know, starchy vegetables or anything like that. I enjoy them, don't get me wrong. They just don't do well for my body, so I don't typically consume them terribly much. I do occasionally. But I have definitely found that I forgot my train of thought. Anyways, also, oh, that's what it was. I just got my blood work done, and it's gone up considerably. It's still on the low end of normal, but I can fight off rickets with my vitamin D level. So that was a big win for me. And I don't consume any kind of supplements or anything like that. It's just what I get from the animal products that I consume. And the sun, which this last summer, I didn't really go outside a whole lot. I was super busy. I did go outside, but not tremendously. I didn't go sunbathing. I didn't go to the beach or anything like that. So for the most part, my vitamin D comes from the food that I consume. So vitamin E is also in most forms of animal products and fats and things like that. It's not hugely important with the immune system, but it does play a part in it, and it is an antioxidant. So wanted to throw that in there. It also has vitamin K in it, which is very important for any gut bacteria. I don't know exactly the mechanism for it, but in some way it feeds it, or fertilizes it, or gives it strength in some way. Vitamin K is really good for your gut bacteria and things like that. It's very important. It also has vitamin B6, which boosts your immune response. And that's basically like if, say, there's a virus or a bacteria that just got in through, you just breathed it in, whatever. You just breathed it in, and the B6 is going to help with your immune system's response time. It's basically like it goes and it finds it, and it's like, okay, there's a problem over here in sector 7A, go after it. And so that seems to me what that kind of does. And then there's also folic acid, which anybody who's ever pregnant, knew somebody who was pregnant, or is alive probably has heard of the importance of folic acid. And it promotes white blood cell production. It helps with T cell distribution, cell division, and growth. So super important, because when you're sick and you're not feeling well, that bacteria, that virus is going to damage you in some way inside, and your body has to regrow cells, and it has to repair cells that were damaged from that virus or bacteria that was wreaking havoc in your body. To varying degrees, of course. I mean, you have a simple little sniffle, I'm sure not a whole lot of damage was done, but if you got bronchitis or pneumonia, you're probably going to have a good amount of recovery time ahead of you. From everything that I've read and researched and things like that, obviously you can take the supplements of all of these forms of the vitamins, but the reason that I like to have them in actual animal products is that they come with so many other things. It's not an isolated vitamin or an isolated mineral or anything that's isolated. I like to consume my vitamins in the form of, healthy animal products, fermented foods, things like that have it all in its normal ratios that nature had intended. That's kind of my reasoning behind it. I didn't even know until recently that you don't want to take vitamin D unless you take vitamin K2 with it. But when you have animal foods, you have both. All of the things are in there that it's required. Who knows what the actual ratios are? Nature knows what the ratios are. So that's why I like to do that. Number 6 on my list of things that I like to make sure that I do in general, but also even more so when I'm not feeling well, is fermented foods. And fermented foods, when you ferment the foods, it just makes all of the things, all the goodness that is within it, it makes it more bioavailable so that your body can actually digest it and absorb the nutrients that are in it. And another benefit to fermenting foods is that it amplifies whatever might be in there. Like if you ferment some, like sauerkraut, it totally amplifies the amount of vitamin C in it and all sorts of other things. I think it even includes folic acid. It just amplifies everything that's in it, and it also makes it more easy to digest and assimilate into your body. So having fermented foods, super important, and in general, but especially when you're sick. It helps to build up your gut microbiome and all of those sorts of amazing things. Number 7 on my list is eating lots of heat. And that's why I added the fermented hot sauce, fermented jalapenos, and fermented garlic to this meal. And then I also added a bunch of other spices and things like that give a good amount of kick as well. It's hard to even describe, but like if you're familiar at all with like Chinese medicine, a lot of different herbs and things like that are very warming to the body. And when it goes along with having a fever, giving your body the ability to fight back. If you kind of gently, of course, it's not like anything going crazy through the roof, but it kind of it gives off, all of them have their own types of antibacterial, antiviral, anti whatever it may be within them. And when you consume them, especially in kind of like a symphony of a bunch of different flavors and a bunch of different nutrients, it gives your body even further ability to fight anything that you are experiencing or what's going on in your body. Number 8 on my list of things that I like to do in general, as well as when I'm feeling ill, is chicken broth. Bone broth in general, but especially chicken broth, is something that I enjoy consuming. In general, I like to have about a pint of it a day. I haven't been doing that lately. Might be part of why I got sick. Who knows? And when I get sick, I like to amp that up and have between 2 and 4 pints every day. And this stuff is stuff that I made on my stove with my, chickens that I cooked and not raised, but I did cook them, and, kept all the bones and all of that kind of stuff. It's so powerful for your gut microbiome, and it's so powerful for just kind of general health. I tried to look up kind of the exact what's in chicken broth, and I'm sure it varies to a very wide degree. But in general, I looked at the Kettle and Fire website, and they said it has magnesium, phosphorus, gelatin, collagen, glycine, glutamine, protein, iron, potassium, calcium, glucosamine, and chondroitin sulfate, as well as I'm sure a tremendous number of other things. Especially in the bone broth that I make, I like to add all kinds of digestive herbs to it. I add, sage, oregano, thyme, turmeric, pepper, salt, apple cider vinegar, many other ones. But I just like to kind of make it delicious so that I want to consume it, and if you just make a kind of a salt and water kind of bone broth, you're not super likely to eat it, or drink it. But when you add all these other things that make it so much more delicious, you're much more likely to actually drink it straight, at least without having to make some kind of a soup out of it. And so you're much more likely to consume more of it, which is amazing for your gut microbiome. So number 9 on the list of things that I like to do when I'm not feeling well is to make and take liposomal vitamin C. I'm sure everybody knows all the health benefits to vitamin C. If you don't know it, you can always look it up, but it's super important in pretty much everything to do with the immune system, fighting off bacteria and fighting off viruses, fungus, you name it. I don't know about the fungus, so I'll have to look that one up, but definitely antibacterial, antiviral. And it helps with like the synthesis of collagen. It's an antioxidant. And basically when you take vitamin C, there's something called like a vitamin C threshold, where if you take too much vitamin C, bad things can happen to you. And so when you take liposomal vitamin C, like I made earlier today, basically what it does is that I believe, my understanding of it is that the liposomes that are in the sunflower lecithin, basically through the process of soaking it and then using the sonic cleaner, it makes the liposomes, either the vitamin C goes into the liposomes or the liposomes cover it up. And basically what it makes that do is that it bypasses parts of your intestines that would make it flush out, and it makes it go and be directly absorbed into your cells. And so what that does is that it makes it so that you can take a much higher dose of vitamin C, and the dose that you do take, it will be much more absorbed. Like the percentage of it will be absorbed much better in your body. So this one, I usually take about a 2 tablespoon dose of it. I just take a shot glass of it. It's roughly 2 tablespoons. And I just shoot it and then chase it with some water, because it's not the most pleasant tasting thing in the world. And I like to make sure that there's not all that acid on my teeth. So basically that's what I like to do. And it works pretty darn well. Forgot to get water. From the research that I've done on liposomal vitamin C, it's right up there, if not surpassing intravenous vitamin C, and it's just much more beneficial in my mind, because it is so much easier to make. It takes a half hour to make. You don't have to go to the doctor's office and stick a needle in you, and there's no way that you can get this high dose of vitamin C. Well, I guess there's not no way, but I certainly can't take this high of a dose of vitamin C without it just not absorbing. So that's why I like to take this, and it's just amazing and great for your immune system. So that's why I like to take that. And it's totally worth the effort. It's super easy to make. And finally, number 10 on my list of things that I like to do when I'm not feeling so great is I always like to make up a big batch of ginger tea. And really, most of the time, if it's a reasonable price for the organic ginger, I like to make sure that it's going on the stove pretty much all winter long. And I just sip on it. Oftentimes I'll drink it instead of coffee. Especially when I'm feeling sick. Coffee to me doesn't taste that great. So oftentimes I substitute it for ginger tea, which tastes amazing. And I like it because it has antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, pretty much everything that's bad in it is in this wonderful cup of tea. And you can add honey to it, you can add lemon to it, kind of depending on what you like for flavor. And if you add the honey to it, it adds an extra layer of antibacterial properties to it. I just don't like to take it because I don't like to consume sugar, but you can totally add that to it, and you can add lemon to it, which is pretty common, I'm sure you know, but I just don't do it. I like it simple and straight. So And this stuff is delicious. It's super easy to make. It takes boiling on the stove for probably, depending on how much ginger you use and how spicy you like it, it kind of just varies from that. Oftentimes I'll cook it for like 2 hours, and then sometimes I'll do a little bit less ginger in it just to kind of save a little bit of money. And then I will just cook it for longer, and that tends to work out just about as well. I like it to be kind of spicy. This one's a little on the weak side. I think I used a pound and 2 ounces. I usually use a pound and a half, and for that big pot of water, and that works out great for me. I like it. It gives it a nice kick to it, and it's just delicious. So, you know, ginger is ginger. It helps if you have any kind of nausea. It helps boost your immune system. It gives heat to your body. It's just delicious and wonderful, and it's a nice cup of heat that you can drink when you're just feeling crummy. So there you go. I don't know if you kind of gathered from the list of things that I like to do when I'm not feeling well. My goal in healing from any kind of sickness or just general health is not to fight the disease, but more to boost my body, to give my body what it needs to actually fight anything that I'm going through in that moment. I like to give my body and my immune system the tools that it needs to strengthen itself, to build itself up, and to fight whatever I might be needing to fight. Basically, the way that I tend to go after that, with all of my experience that I've had with myself and the research that I've done, about 70 to 80% of your immune system is in your gut. And so the best way that I've found to heal myself from any kind of illness or for general health is to build my gut microbiome. And doing that through like fermented foods and all that kind of stuff. Having a healthy gut microbiome is the key to giving your body the tools that it needs to fighting off those little buggers whenever they come along. And so oftentimes it might be like a little blip, like you might have a stuffy nose for a day or two, or sometimes it's just then your body has the tools that it needs to fight off like an actual sickness that actually roots within your body and is trying to get rid of it. From my experience, I've found that fermenting foods, it both amplifies and creates different vitamins and nutrients and minerals and things like that, and it brings out a lot of the things that are kind of like locked inside of those vegetables and fruits, and it makes them available to your body to actually use, and it makes the foods themselves more easy to digest, and it also brings the added benefit of having all of those cultured bacteria going through into your digestive system to help build up your gut microbiome, and that helps you feel better. This kind of thing is what makes me so passionate about fermented foods and animal products and just natural healing in general. And I want to make sure that I insert here that when I talk about animal products, I'm always and forever talking about sustainably raised animals, ethically sourced, and animals that were animals living in their own environment, pasture raised and organically fed, and all of those sorts of things. Animal fats, proteins, and offal are one of the most nutrient dense foods that you can consume. All of the nutrients within these products they come to us within the form that they're actually needed to assimilate into our bodies. So our bodies are not required to put in any extra work to convert those things that, oftentimes are in plants and things like that. Your body has to convert it over to a form that it can use. But when you consume it in the form of animal products, especially healthy animal fats and things like that, it is in its natural form and your body can just assimilate it right away. And oftentimes with vegetables and things like that, most people's gut microbiome are not healthy enough to actually convert those things into the proper mineral, nutrient, vitamin, whatever it may be that your body needs to actually use it. So when you consume it in animal form, it just goes to work right away, and it alleviates a lot of that work that it would have to do to convert it, and it can put those processes towards actually fighting off a new disease or building your health back up, whichever it may be. I also find that natural healing processes with real foods, spices, traditional cooking, fermenting your foods, oils, tinctures, all of those sorts of things, I feel that they all work hand in hand in helping you to build health and helping me to build health. That's what's helped me, but helping me to build my health back up from where I was before. And putting all of these things together have kind of just piled on top of each other and brought me from a place where I was, 300 pounds, pre-diabetic, and just in the worst shape of my entire life, or that I ever thought possible, to where I am now. I still have a ways to go, but I am definitely much better off having ever discovered natural foods, fermented foods, real animal products, and just doing all of these sorts of things that are non-pharmaceutical to actually heal my body and build my immune system. So If you found this video to be at all helpful, you enjoyed it, maybe you learned a thing or two, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video when I'm feeling a little bit better. Thanks for watching. Bye.